Disturbing new information tonight on a local man who is accused of murder.
19 Investigates found the suspect has a significant criminal history spanning multiple states.
And the woman he's accused of killing, police say he's been violent with her in the past.
New at 6, here's investigator Mike Mason with what we've uncovered.
Can we find out why he was here?
Corey Sanders only said a few words in court Wednesday morning before his public defender invoked his right to silence. The 41-year-old is charged with aggravated murder, accused of fatally shooting a woman on Judson Avenue over the weekend. Police say 39-year-old Brickathia Pruitt was found dead inside of a car registered to Sanders, and they also have cell phone data connecting him to the crime scene. According to court records we obtained, Sanders recently threatened Pruitt with a gun, and 19 Investigates found he's also been accused of trying to kill her in the past. In March of 2020, Sanders was arrested for strangling and beating Pruitt, who was his girlfriend at the time. Pruitt told police Sanders also fired a gun at her head. He was charged with attempted murder, but pleaded guilty to lesser charges and was sentenced to 4 years in prison. At the time the 2020 attack on Pruitt occurred, 19 Investigates found Sanders was on supervised release from federal prison, where he had spent nearly 8 years locked up on a weapons charge. In 2011, he was busted in Michigan with a stolen gun and 73 baggies of cocaine and heroin. Records show he took a plea deal in that case and wasn't charged for the drugs. In 2008, Sanders was sentenced to 2 years in prison for brutally beating his handicapped mother in her Cleveland home. We found he also has convictions in Illinois for domestic battery and drugs. In his previous cases, attorneys for Sanders said he has significant psychological and emotional issues as a result of his abusive childhood. According to court records, he was born to a drug-addicted mother who stabbed him 32 times when he was only 5. Sanders said he spent several years in foster care and residential juvenile facilities. While in prison, he said he began pursuing a bachelor's degree in social work because he wanted to help troubled teens that faced abuse and neglect. Sanders is currently at the Cuyahoga County Jail on a $2 million bond. He's set to go to court next week for his preliminary hearing. Mike Mason, 19 News.
What if I told you a woman was shot in the head by her boyfriend in 2020 and lived? What if I told you she spent years recovering only to move back in with him 4 years later, and by February 2025, she was dead? This isn't a movie. This isn't fiction. This is the brutal, true story of Brickathia Pruitt. And it's a case that's forcing people to ask hard questions about trauma, survival, and what we cling to when we're desperate for hope. Because when you hear what happened, you'll find yourself asking the same thing everyone else has. How could someone make that choice? Brickathia Pruitt wasn't a statistic. She wasn't just another case number. She had a name, a life, a family, and people who loved her deeply. In her Cleveland neighborhood, she was known, respected, loved. She made people feel like family. That was her gift. She could walk into a room and change the whole mood, warmer, safer. Her smile wasn't forced, it was real, the kind that reached her eyes, the kind that made you feel seen. As a mother, Brethia gave everything. She backed her kids when no one else did, cheered for them like their wins were her own. She was steady, always there, always giving. Her love was simple, steady, no conditions, no games, just love. And as a grandmother, she lit up around her grandkids. They were everything to her. She read to them, played with them, taught them kindness and how to stay strong when life hurts. All she ever wanted was for them to feel safe, to feel loved. Her sister Nicole Geiger said it best. Brickathia was the backbone of their family. When things fell apart, people turned to her. When something needed to get done, she stepped up. When someone needed comfort, she showed up. She wasn't just Nicole's sister. She was her best friend, her confidant, and her hero. That's a quote, and it says everything. The two of them were close. They shared everything. Private jokes, old dreams, the kind of bond you don't get twice in life. Nicole said her sister had this way of finding hope in darkness. No matter what she went through, she kept moving. She didn't break. People who knew her talk about that resilience like legend. Life didn't go easy on her, but she didn't back down. She got up every time. She wasn't naive. She just refused to let pain define her. In her community, she stood out. She checked on neighbors, brought meals when someone got sick, remembered birthdays, always had a kind word when it mattered. She made Cleveland brighter just by being alive. And her dreams? They were simple. She didn't want luxury. She wanted her family to be okay. She wanted her kids to have chances she didn't get. She wanted her grandkids to grow up with peace and safety. More than anything, she wanted to build something that would last, something meaningful, something that would outlive her. Pause for a second. Think about someone you'd do anything for, the one person in your life who means everything. Got them in mind? Drop a comment and tell us who they are, and let us know where you're watching from. To understand how Brickathia ended up dead in 2025, you have to go back to where it all started. Back to 2020, back to Corey Sanders. He seemed normal at first, regular guy, Cleveland local, nothing about him screamed danger. But behind closed doors, it was a different story. Corey had a temper, and one day, it snapped. It started like a normal argument, but it didn't end that way. This wasn't shouting, this wasn't slamming a door. This ended with Brickathia fighting for her life. Sanders choked her first, hands around her neck. She fought back hard, but he was stronger. His grip tightened. She couldn't breathe. Then he escalated. He grabbed a gun. She was already weak from the attack. He aimed at her head, pulled the trigger. The bullet hit her skull. It should have killed her instantly. Everything about the shot said fatal, but somehow she didn't die. She was still breathing when paramedics arrived. Barely, but breathing. They couldn't believe it. They'd never seen anything like it. They rushed her to the hospital. It was a race. Doctors said it didn't look good, told the family to prepare for the worst. But Brickathia survived the night, then the next night, and the one after that. Her recovery was brutal. Multiple surgeries, rehab, pain, exhaustion. She had to relearn how to speak, how to walk, how to process her thoughts. It took everything she had, but she kept going. The damage to Brethia wasn't just physical, it went deeper. She lived with the trauma, couldn't sleep, couldn't relax. Loud noises rattled her. New faces made her flinch. She kept reliving that moment, Corey's hands around her throat. While she struggled to recover, the justice system took over. Sanders was arrested, charged with attempted murder, aggravated assault, multiple felonies. The case against him was airtight. Her testimony, the hospital records, the scene itself, it all pointed to one man, Corey Sanders. He went to court, faced the charges, and lost, convicted, sentenced, locked away for years. To Brethia and her family, it felt like justice, not just payback, but protection. A restraining order backed it up. He couldn't contact her, not directly, not through anyone else. For the first time in years, she could exhale, he was gone. With Sanders behind bars, Brickathia tried to start over. From 2020 to 2024, she focused on healing. She threw herself into her family, her kids, her grandkids. Her home became her safe place again. She rebuilt her life piece by piece. New habits, new people, friends who never knew the violence. Slowly, the fear faded. Her sister, Nicole, watched it all, watched her come back to life. Meanwhile, Sanders sat in the Ohio prison system. On paper, he was behaving. Anger management classes, self-help programs, education certificates. He stayed out of trouble. And he wrote, not just letters, blueprints. Each one was planned, measured. They weren't rants, they were campaigns. He wrote about regret, about change, about God. He painted himself as a new man, redeemed, reformed. He got out in early 2024. At first, he stayed away, found housing, got a job, no contact, no violations. But he didn't stay away. He worked through people, mutual friends, old connections. He started floating messages to her, third-party feelers, never enough to violate court orders, but enough to test the waters. He spoke about therapy, about growth. He didn't downplay what he'd done, he admitted everything. That's what made it convincing. It didn't sound like a con, it sounded like confession. Brickathia's first answer was no, a hard no. She told their mutuals she wanted nothing to do with him. She had a new life. He wasn't part of it. But the messages kept coming, each one different. One talked about religion, another about family, another about struggle. He knew where to push. He knew what strings to pull. Then he found a crack. Brethia had bills, medical costs, expenses from surgeries and therapy. She was drowning. Sanders offered help, money, no strings, just help through others. She said no again, but things got worse. The bills piled up. The messages got softer, kinder, less like persuasion, more like concern. She gave in. First, it was money through mutuals, then a phone call, then more calls, then a meeting. Word got out, people were shocked. Her sister Nicole was gutted, devastated, doesn't cover it. Friends turned cold. The community didn't understand. How could she let him back in? But by then, he was already in. He moved in. They shared a home. February 9th, 2025. Started like any other Sunday. They woke up early, routine stuff. But that day didn't end like the rest. What happened inside their home that morning is still a mystery. Only Sanders knows. But investigators say something violent happened between 5 and 6:30 a.m. And by the end of it, Brethia was dead. Sanders didn't call for help. He didn't wait. He took her body, put it in his car, drove off. It wasn't a random car. It was registered to him. That would be his first mistake. He drove across Cleveland. Through neighborhood after neighborhood, cameras tracked his route. He had a plan. He wasn't panicking. He had picked his spot. He parked on Judson Drive, East 47th, a quiet stretch in the Corlett neighborhood. Early morning. Few witnesses. At 6:45 a.m., he left her in the car, then walked away, left her slumped in the seat like nothing happened. But Judson Drive wasn't as quiet as he thought. At 7:15 a.m., a woman walking her usual route noticed the car. It didn't look right. It wasn't parked right. It didn't belong there. She looked inside, saw someone slumped forward, knocked, nothing, called out, silence. Then she saw it. The body wasn't asleep. Something was wrong. At 7:32 a.m., she called 911, told the dispatcher what she saw, an unresponsive person in a car. EMS and police rolled out fast. First unit arrived at 7:41. One look was all it took. This wasn't a medical emergency. This was a homicide. The tape went up, the street shut down. What was once a neighborhood became a crime scene. And the name tied to the car? Corey Sanders. When police arrived, Brickathia Pruitt was already gone. Her body was slumped inside the car. No movement, no pulse, nothing but silence. Officers secured the area fast. Yellow tape went up. Backup was called in. Detectives rolled in minutes later. At 8:05 a.m., a lead investigator took charge. The car was photographed from every angle. Evidence logs started immediately. The license plate was run. Within minutes, they had a name, Corey Sanders. Now, it wasn't just a mystery, it was a manhunt. By 8:30 a.m., they impounded the vehicle and transported Brickathia's body to the county morgue. The case had a name, but it didn't yet have a charge. That changed fast. Forensics tore the car apart. They found fingerprints, DNA, debris. All of it was sent to the lab. Then they found the phone. Sanders' cell phone had been left behind in the car. That phone cracked the case wide open. Technicians pulled everything: texts, calls, GPS data. The map told the story. Sanders left their shared apartment after 5 a.m. He drove straight to Judson Drive, got there at 6:43 a.m. He stayed parked for 12 minutes, then the phone moved. The car didn't move. That matched exactly with the witness timeline. And the texts on the phone, they were angry, threatening, increasing in intensity in the days before Brickathia's death. They showed motive. Detectives didn't stop there. They knocked on doors, interviewed neighbors. One neighbor had heard them the night before, around 11 p.m., loud voices, then furniture being shoved or tossed. Another witness, a gas station clerk, spotted Sanders alone at 7:15 a.m. the next morning. He was buying cigarettes, agitated, messy, fidgeting with his phone. Security footage backed it up. Sanders left Judson Drive at 6:55. He was at the gas station by 7:15. That was enough. But there was more. Credit card records showed Sanders was getting ready to disappear. He bought a bus ticket to Detroit, clothes, pulled cash from an ATM. He wasn't grieving, he was running. Detectives tracked his movements, followed his paper trail, found him hiding in Garfield Heights with a relative. He tried to lie, claimed he was someone else, didn't work. He was arrested on the spot, calm, no resistance, no answers, just one request: a lawyer. The trial began 6 months later. The courtroom was full. Brickathia's family, domestic violence advocates, reporters. The state laid everything out: GPS data, security footage, witness testimony. And the texts, they were read aloud in court. They showed a man unraveling. The store clerk testified. So did the neighbor. Both placed Sanders with Brickathia right before she died. The defense argued it was circumstantial, that someone else could have used Sanders' car. But the jury didn't buy it. They deliberated less than 4 hours. Sanders was found guilty of aggravated murder, abuse of a corpse, and tampering with evidence. The courtroom erupted. Brickathia's family cried, hugged, let out the breath they'd been holding since February. During sentencing, Nicole Geiger stood up, Brickathia's sister. Her voice shook, but her words cut deep. She spoke about the sister she had lost, the grandmother her family would never see again, and the devastating impact Sanders' actions had on everyone who loved Brickathia. The judge didn't hold back. Sanders got 40 years without parole. The court made it clear this wasn't a one-time mistake. He tried to kill her in 2020. He finished the job in 2025. That pattern of violence sealed his fate. But Brickathia's story didn't end with the sentence. It became a warning, a turning point. Advocates rallied. Nicole Geiger spoke at conferences. She pushed for stronger laws, tighter monitoring, more resources for survivors, and it worked. Several states passed legislation inspired by Brickathia's case. They called it Brickathia's Law. New rules, stricter parole supervision, programs to stop victims from being pulled back into danger. Her story also sparked hard questions. Why do survivors go back? Why do systems fail to protect them? Organizations used her name to teach, to warn, to help others understand how deep this problem goes. Today, Brickathia Pruitt is more than a headline. She is remembered, she is mourned, and she is the reason real change is happening. If her story moved you, subscribe, share it. Help us keep these stories alive. We can't bring Brickathia back, but we can make sure no one else walks her path.